Hi, in this tutorial, we're going to go over the multiplication property of equality. Today, you'll learn how to use the multiplication property of equality to solve equations. How to solve equations in the form negative x equals c. You'll learn how to use the addition and multiplication properties to solve equations and how to solve applied problems using formulas. So the multiplication property of equality states that the same non-zero real number or algebraic expression may be multiplied to both sides of an equation without changing the solution. So if we have a equals b, we can multiply c to both sides to get a times c equals b times c without changing the solution. So let's go over an example. So here, let's solve the equation x divided by negative 5 equals 6. So we have x divided by negative 5 equals 6. We can multiply 5 to both sides of the equation. So here, we're going to multiply 5, and here we're going to multiply 5. So now we can cross these out, and we have x equals, put a negative here and a negative here. So now we have x equals 6 times negative 5. So x equals negative 30. So now let's solve the equation negative 50 equals negative 5y. So we have negative 50 equals negative 5y. So now we can divide both sides of the equation by negative 5. So here we can divide by negative 5 and divide by negative 5. So this negative 5's cancel out. So now we have negative 50 over negative 5 equals y. Or negative 50 divided by 5, negative 5 is 10 equals y. We could write that as y equals 10. So how do we solve equations in the form negative x equals c? So the first thing we're going to do is multiply both sides by negative 1. Then we're going to solve for x. The solution is the opposite or additive inverse of c. So let's go over an example. Here we have negative x equals negative 12. So what we're going to do is multiply both sides of the equation by negative 1. So we have negative x times negative 1 equals negative 12 times negative 1. So negative x times negative 1 is x, and negative 12 times negative 1 is 12. So that's our answer, x equals 12. So how do you solve equations that use the addition and multiplication properties? So if an equation does not contain fractions, you're going to use the addition property to isolate the variable term. Then you're going to use the multiplication property to isolate the variable. So let's go over an example. Let's solve the equation negative 2x minus 5 equals 11. So we have negative 2x minus 5 equals 11. So the first thing we're going to do is move 5 to the other side of the equation. So since we're subtracting 5, we're going to add 5. So now we get negative 2x, negative 5 plus 5 is 0, so that cancels out, equals 11 plus 5. So now negative 2x equals 16. So now we're going to divide to get negative 2x to the other side. We're going to divide by negative 2. So negative 2x divided by negative 2 divided by negative 2. So these cancel out. So now we have x equals 16 divided by negative 2. So now we get x equals 16 divided by negative 2 is negative 8. So that's our answer. So now you should be able to use the multiplication property of equality to solve equations. You should be able to solve equations in the form of negative x equals c, use the addition and multiplication properties to solve equations, and you should be able to solve applied problems using formulas. So now try and solve problems in the multiplication property of equality workbook. For more help, sign up for online tutoring, and in the next tutorial, we'll go over solving linear equations.